Women of Wyoming Then and Now is brought to you by the Wyoming Historical Society and supported in part by a grant from the Wyoming Cultural Trust Fund, a program of the Department of State Parks and Cultural Resources. This program features unique female perspectives on events, themes, or narratives related to state history. We, the host, believe that one woman's action toward a better future can result in a greater legacy that inspires and equips many generations of women to come. Welcome to Women of Wyoming Then and Now. I'm today's host, Janelle Molony, an author and historian, and joining me is my co-host, Linda Fabian.
Morning, Sarah. It's so nice to meet you. My name is Linda Fabian. I am the former director of the Wyoming Historical Society, now retired.
And our very special guest today is Sarah Ortegon HighWalking. She is an actress and a dancer and an artist, and she has some really powerful messages to share with our female viewers today. Sarah, hi, welcome.
Hello, dos Nana Setnon and Akabethse. So I am enrolled Eastern Shoshone, but I'm also Northern Arapaho. The government only allows us to be enrolled into one tribe, so just to clarify. Yes, so I am an actress. I started off acting in plays, and then that moved from a play to a musical to movies or shows. The one show that I was in flew us to Budapest to film, and that was for Jamestown. It was telling the story of the Pamunkey people, which were the people that were first contacted not by Columbus, but who were pushed a little bit westward. And I'm also a dancer. I competed in Miss Native American USA in 2013, and I won the title. During that time, I actually used my art, and I danced around my art using the jingle dress, showing that I wanted our communities to heal from the previous atrocities that have happened to us. And because the jingle dress is a healing dance, and so I also dance, and I am an artist. It's something that I cannot get away from the early ages of elementary all the way up until now. I try to go to school, and I changed my major multiple times, but somehow always ended up going back into various art classes.
Where were you born and raised, Sarah?
I was born in Denver, and I went to school in Denver, but my parents would, so they had 12 kids. And so during the summers, we would travel back to the reservation on the Wind River Reservation in Wyoming. So it was part city, part res. And I loved every bit of being able to run outside, play in the rivers, run from dogs, res dogs. That was just a part of growing up. So it was a very different experience going from one to the other. One was a feeling of freedom, and the other was very closed in yards. You have to act a certain way. So it was a different upbringing, I think.
That's that living in two different worlds at the same time kind of thing, right?
It's hard to say two different worlds because it's one world for me. But it's two different worlds, I guess, to learn how to navigate. Yeah.
So you felt freedom when you were at the res?
Oh, yeah. Mostly because my parents had dropped us off with my aunt and uncle, George and Shirley, and we were free to go wherever we wanted, because my dad was always wary of us getting kidnapped in the city. And so we had to stay within our yard. But on the res, that wasn't something that my dad worried about. I don't know why. And I hear a lot of things about the res, how it's not a good place to be, but it's really dependent on your viewpoints and I think where you come from. So
Yeah. Your navigational skills.
Yes.
Well, you mentioned that you integrated your culture and your hope and a message into what you were doing in beauty contests and in your artwork. And we think that that is Really awesome. And we're really proud of you for incorporating those worlds into one beautiful expression that no matter who you are, we can appreciate the beauty of it. So can you tell us a little bit more about ways that you have expressed culture and beauty and femininity in a way that will have a positive impact on Wyoming women?
So I think specifically on the impact that I have on Indigenous children. They see a representation of something that they could possibly take as a road that's maybe different from what they see on a normal basis. I know that art is a lot of the time it's seen as a hobby. It's seen as something that you do to express yourself, but not a lot of the time do you see in even various cultures that it can take you to places around the world, and it's a gift given to you, but it's also a way for you to give back to your community by sharing what's a part of you, and reviving maybe some of those historic ways and bringing them back into the future. A lot of the times, I do focus on sometimes the loss of the buffalo within some of my pieces. And now the tribes are bringing back the buffalo back onto our reservation, and we're beginning to revive those lifestyles because our culture survived and surrounded around the buffalo.
Mm-hmm. So you're really bridging the past and the present and allowing them to coexist and not be forgotten.
Yes. Yes.
I love that.
Thank you.
Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about how what you share now with children and other people, how that was instilled in you?
Well, I was actually raised by a minister father. And so a lot of my traditions, and my mom was put into boarding school. And so she was part of that era. And so it was more, I wanted to learn about my history, and I wanted it to not only focus on all of the sad things that had happened, but on the resilience of who we are. And so that is what I focus on, and that is what I will be passing on to my son. And it's a big focus for me and my husband. He's Shoshone. And so I know that there is a beautiful way to join our past to our present and push forward towards our future. And it doesn't always have to stay focused on, oh, this is what Native American art is, because it has to have certain depictions within it. But just the simple fact that I am a Shoshone Arapaho woman creating art, that is what makes it Native American art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're definitely getting a modern upgrade on our concept of what is traditional art versus what is modern art, and how that line can be blurred, and who we are is still expressed in what we are creating, no matter if it was 100 years ago or now. Our culture still comes out, our experiences, our wisdom, our knowledge still comes out. And so you're right, it's absolutely appropriate that you are considered a Native American artist and your work is considered Native American art.
Yeah.
So can you elaborate on some of the background that influenced you to get into the work that you're doing with expressing beauty and feminism and really harnessing that? Like you said, it's a gift. And what do you do with that? How do you use that in a responsible way? So how did you get that inspiration? Was that like passed down through grandma, or how did that happen?
So my mom did teach me how to bead. So I started when I was 9 or 10. I started to do beadwork. Actually, when I was attending college, one of my professors had told me that beadwork was a craft, it wasn't fine art. And in response to that, I started to add beadwork onto canvases, because I wanted to show that what my people were creating, I consider it as high art, even if it's on clothing, if it's on moccasins. When you're wearing something that is specifically made for you, I think then you become the canvas. And so it's all an expression of who we are as a people. Like this is a painting behind me that I created, and in the center is all beadwork. The braid is made of all beadwork.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, Sarah, that is
So
sparkly.
you could see all the beads in there.
It
That
invites
is
you to
so
touch it.
exquisite.
Yeah.
So exquisite.
Thank you.
Is there a name for the long hair braid that the men wear?
So I mean, there are words in our language, but it is a braid, and we do believe that it's a reflection of your hair is with you always, and it's growing from the root of your head. And so it's a reflection of your strength. But there's not necessarily like a word that we have in English for it. It's a braid, pretty much. But I believe that that's reflective. The braid is reflective of our spines. And this is just my take on it. And I believe that they do say that women are the backbone of our people, because we are the strength, and everything comes from the backbone, and it gives us movement, it gives us strength. We could stand upright because of it. And so that's how I see the braid. It's just a reflection of what's inside us on the outside.
Beautiful.
That's really well said. Wow.
Yeah. So spiritual.
Thank you.
So, as I asked a small, silly, insignificant question about the name of a braid, there was so much power and so much meaning to you in that you were able to provide that extra context, and it became beautiful in that process. And I think it's important to point out for our viewers that as we're looking back at our past and our culture and our origins, sometimes we think the things we're looking at are maybe small and insignificant, and perhaps it's because we don't understand the full effect. So I want to ask you, how do you hope that your expression, your work, your process will be interpreted in the future? Like, we don't want people to see it as just a painting with a braid. We want that fullness there. And how will you pass that rich story along?
So hopefully it's written somewhere, but if it's not, I would hope that I know that we have moved as a society towards a lot of mental strength. So what we focus on as society now is learning all the time about the physical realities of our lives. But what I think that we have stepped away from, which I hope we move towards again, is our balanced self, because we are a physical being, we are a spiritual being, and we are also just energy as well. And so I just hope that if we're just going to just focus on science, that they start to maybe do research on the ways in which historically our people have survived and have lived through this world, where we practice certain ceremonies, and those ceremonies help us physically, but they don't only help us physically, they help us mentally, spiritually, on so many different levels. And so that's something that I hope that people take to the future by looking at my art. The fact that we are multi-layered, and we're not just one point of view. And so that's what I hope that people take into the future.
Sarah, when you mentioned that women are the backbone of your society or our society, that made me think about this whole project that we're working on, Women of Wyoming, Then and Now, because we're beginning to really understand and see the strength that women bring to their tribes or to their community, or it's just such an important thing that you touched upon.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a little bit about what your year was like as Miss Native American USA?
Yeah. So in 2013, that was the year I learned how to wear heels. Because I always hung out with my brothers. I had 6 brothers, 5 sisters, and I hung out with my brothers a lot. And so I always want to be outside throwing clumps of dirt at my brothers and running around. And that's where I found my joy. But I also learned that there is a certain type of joy in being feminine. And I don't want to limit that to just physical women. I do understand that there are two spirits and various people who identify more with the feminine spirituality than the masculine. And so I don't want to take that away from anyone and say that only women can feel this way, are, women who are born physically women. And then for Miss Native American USA, I traveled to Guatemala, Moldova, it's an area right off of Russia. And it was to show that there are different cultures, and that even though we are various cultures, that we can learn to understand one another, and we can learn to accept the differences that we have, as long as it's not correlated with oppression of another culture.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, I'm glad you mentioned the oppression part of that, because when people are expressing themselves and leaning into physical beauty, or maybe it's vocal beauty or movement beauty, and we're leaning into those feminine elements, there can be oppression or judgment applied in the most harsh way, whether it's vocal, verbalized, written, or unspoken. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned that you consider that in your work and in your design. You said something about having the physical form being stripped out of the outfits, so that you have to see exactly what you mean for people to see, and you cannot strip anything else away or pick at it. And I'm hoping you can elaborate on that. And then I want to talk about some of your art.
Yes. So in my my paintings, I one of the first ones that I created with the jingle dresses, I took out my physical form and I painted the dresses as if they were dancing in the air without me in them. And what I wanted to show was that we're not just a physical form here on this earth. We, like I've said before, we are multiple different layers. And if someone was to judge, I would want them to judge on the spirit of who I am, and accept me or accept whoever for the spirit of who they are. And so by cloaking, just showing the dress dancing, because it is a healing dance. It originated from the Anishinaabe people. And by showing the power of movement without the physical movement, I think it shows how we are basically particles moving throughout the earth. Say it wasn't me in that dress, say it was a two-spirit individual who feels like they feel best dancing in a jingle dress. But you wouldn't know that because I took out the form, right? So it's not for us to judge who is dancing within that. It's to bring healing, and to bring good feelings. So
you've also designed a beautiful combination outfit with a turquoise skirt and a white belt. I imagine I can actually feel the texture of this creamy leather belt and giant earrings that just sparkle in the right light. Can you tell us more about that piece of work?
Yeah, so that piece of work is actually halfway finished. I will be adding in the beadwork here pretty soon, and that will be on view at the National Women in the Arts Museum in 2024, along with a few other pieces that I am creating and have created. And it's all part of a story. And so that piece, I just want to show that there are different types of dresses. There are different types of expressions within each outfit that we wear. A lot of the times historically, colors were correlated with families. So if you used a certain color, it related you back to a certain family. So that's what that painting is about, but it's also relating back to our spiritual selves in movement, even when we're not in a physical form.
What part will have beads on it?
So I'm going to do all of the regalia, so the beaded regalia. So a lot, what I have is I have hair ties that are beaded, a choker that's beaded, bracelets that are beaded, as well as the belt is going to also be beaded. And I am still working on getting those fine hairs of the otter around our hair, the hair ties that we have.
As your art has progressed, have you discovered that it's an opportunity for you to reach out to others and to express your heritage and your spirituality?
Oh yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the blacklight dress that you wore at a recent Crowd Riff conference?
So I did a performance for Crowd Riff, and I actually did a keynote speech talking about tourism and how they could better respect Indigenous people in various areas. But that performance, I had envisioned a different way of dancing in the powwow world. And I wanted to see how our dances would look under blacklight, because in that sort of way, it's kind of removing my physical self, and it's highlighting the dress, in which I am also doing in my paintings now. I just think there's a power within the dress, within the spirit. And so I wanted to highlight the dress, and I created that dress specifically to be danced under blacklight when I made that dress. So
you have an incredible imagination.
Thank you.
Do you have any videos of your traditional dances?
Yes, I have a few videos. During that conference, they didn't take any video. I kind of want to keep it the blacklight performance. I kind of want to keep it a mystery, because I feel like when you do that, people want to see it more. When they get a glimpse of something, they want to experience it in person. So I can't kind of keep that a mystery. But I do have videos of me dancing in the daytime at a powwow, and various other dancers. There's so many various forms of dancing within the powwow arena that are beautiful. So I actually performed in Times Square in 2020, and that was a week before the pandemic hit. And I had worked with Jeffrey Gibson. He's a Choctaw artist, and he titled it "She Never Dances Alone." And we had previously recorded me dancing in different outfits. And then he, on all the screens in Times Square, it had me looking up, breathing, and then it was me dancing, kaleidoscoping, and then coming back in and out. And so that's one of the performances that I was able to be a part of, that really meant a lot to me. And I think that was one way in which the Jingle dress was able to have that energy within, such a big space. Is a way to give back to our society.
Well, now more than ever, like you mentioned, we can find these videos, we can find these snippets all over the internet, and it makes researching our cultural connections and our cultural expressions so easy. But if we don't intentionally preserve and then share in a responsible way those female elements, we risk losing so much that we've built up in history to make sure our voices, our representation, our physical form is being represented appropriately. So in one or two thoughts, how would you encourage a viewer who wants to dig deeper into their past or connect the past to the present in their work? What would you encourage them to do to make sure that that process is done with sensitivity and responsibility and thinking for the future generations having access?
I think one way is definitely to get into contact with your grandparents or with the elders within your community. They have so many things to share, but a lot of the times our society moves on faster without our elders. And I think that including them in so many various ways will help us move forward, and at the same time save a lot of those traditions or even stories that are passed down word for word, because sometimes they're not written.
So not all the answers are online, and some of the best resources that we have are right here with us right now. And you make me want to call my grandma. I only have one grandma left, but you make me want to call her right after this show is finished.
Sarah, I just think that it's amazing that you have found a way to express your heritage. And I just want to personally thank you for that. You've just opened my eyes in this little short time that we've had together. And I'm going to learn more. And I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today's conversation, but we know there is so much more to be talked about and to be expressed and looked into. So that's why we're going to provide extra links and resources to go with this video so that our viewers can take that next step to go a little bit further into what it is that makes us tick, what it is that makes us feel vibrant and able to express ourselves. And as a reminder, go talk to Grandma and Grandpa today. Talk to them about their history and their past and learn something new. That's the easiest first step that anyone can take if they're still around. So hurry up.
Oh, Sarah, that was so great. Thank you so much. I can't wait to go look at one of your videos. I think it would just be grand.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Sarah Ortegon HighWalking, for joining us today. It is an incredible honor to have you with us for Women of Wyoming. Then and now, you represent Wyoming very well.